Greetings to you today and welcome to our daily Devo for Thursday, Friday, the 5th of April today. And spring hasn't fought its way back to being here, so it's still hoodie weather, even around the house here. Today's devotion is entitled Impending Resurrection. Impending Resurrection. The author is Malcolm Muggeridge, but the first page of this Devo is actually a quote, a lengthy one, from Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And those of you who know me know Dietrich Bonhoeffer is one of my favorites. Impending resurrection. We pay more attention to dying than to death. We're more concerned to get over the act of dying than to overcome death. Socrates mastered the art of dying. Christ overcame death as the last enemy. There's a real difference between the two things. The one is within the scope of human possibilities. The other means resurrection. It's not from the art of dying, but from the resurrection of Christ that a new and purifying wind can blow through our present world. Here is the answer to Archimedes' challenge. Give me somewhere to stand, and I will move the earth. If only a few people really believed that and acted on it in their daily lives, a great deal would be changed. To live in the light of resurrection, that is what Easter means. Again, this sounds like it's echoing my sermon on Sunday. To live in the light of resurrection, that is what Easter means. Those were all words from Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Now on to Malcolm Muggeridge's thoughts. Jesus audaciously abolished death. I like him using that word. Audaciously abolished death, transforming it from a door that slammed to into one that opened to whoever knocked. He made death, as Bonhoeffer joyously said, on his way to be executed, for a Christian a beginning, not an end. It was the key to life. To die was to live. This was what so impressed Tolstoy in the Christian concept of dying. Furthermore, Tolstoy observed that whereas he and the tiny intellectual elite to which he belonged were horrified by the prospect of dying, because they had seen no point in living, his peasants confronted death with equanimity, well content that their days should end, and serenely confident that their further existence, whatever shape it might have, would be part of God's loving purpose for them. His own despair at the prospect of the obliteration of his claimant ego was so overwhelming that he had to hide away a rope hanging in his study for fear of hanging himself with it. It was then that he turned back to the Gospels. And as Jesus spoke to him through their pages, the dark, menacing figure of death was transformed into the shining promise of life now in this world, and thereafter. In our post-Christian era, death has recovered its old terrors, becoming unmentionable, as sex has become even more mentionable. Private parts are public, but death is our dirty little secret. What is more, the fantasy is sustained that as science has facilitated fornication without procreation, in due course, it will facilitate life without death and enable the process of extending our lifespan to go on and on forever so that it never does come to an end. Thus, Dr. Christian Barnard's heart transplant operations, which caused so much excitement at the time, seemed to hold out the hope of replacing our parts as they wore out, and thus of keeping us on the road indefinitely like old vintage cars. New hearts, kidneys, genitals, brain boxes even, installed as and when required. The requisite spare parts being taken from the newly dead, or maybe from mental defectives and other afflicted persons who might be said for one reason or another to be making no good use of them. The resultant immortal beings would have no occasion to be raised from the dead as Lazarus was, nor would Jesus' wonderful words about being the resurrection and the life have any significance. For them, there was no dying, and therefore no rising from the dead. Nor will those who dream of living without dying be attracted by or even comprehend the notion of dying in order to live. As I approach my own end, which cannot now be long delayed, I find Jesus' outrageous claim to be himself, the resurrection and the life, ever more captivating and meaningful. Quite often waking up in the night as the old do and feeling myself to be half out of my body so that it is a mere chance whether I go back into it to live through another day or fully disengage and make off, hovering thus between life and death, seeing our dear earth with its scents and sounds and colors as I have known and loved them, more perhaps, as Bernano said, than I have dared to admit, recalling the golden hours of human love and human work, at the same time vouchsafed a glimpse of what lies ahead, eternity rising in the distance, a great expanse of ineffable light, so placed, I hear Jesus' words ring triumphantly through the universe, spanning my two existences, the one in time drawing to a close, and the one in eternity at its glorious beginning. So at last, I may understand, and understanding, believe, see my ancient carcass prone between the sheets, stained and worn like a scrap of paper dropped in the gutter, muddy and marred with being trodden underfoot, and hovering over it, myself like a butterfly released from its chrysalis stage and ready to fly away. Are caterpillars told of their impending resurrection? How in dying they will be transformed from poor earth crawlers into creatures of the air with exquisitely painted wings? If told, do they believe? Is it conceivable to them that so restricted an existence as theirs should burgeon into so gay and lightsome a one as a butterfly's? I imagine the wise old caterpillars shaking their heads. No, it can't be. It's a fantasy, self-deception, a dream. Similarly, our wise ones. Yet in the limbo between living and dying, as the night clocks tick remorselessly on, and the black sky implacably shows not one single scratch or streak of gray, I hear those words, I am the resurrection and the life, and feel myself to be carried along on the great tide of joy and peace. I do find it interesting that even as Christians, we want to prolong our days as much as we possibly can here on this earth. I hear Christians say, I don't want to die, as though there's a fear to it, as though the life we have here is more important than the life we've been given by the Lord. I like this. I know it seems morbid. There's a lot of words we don't normally use, a lot of thoughts about things we don't normally go to. But the fact is that we pay more attention to dying than to death. We fear that dying part, even in light of all the promises given to us, even with all the hope that's been promised to us, even with the eternal joy and glory that awaits us. We fear death, and so we try to keep on conquering the dying part here with our pills, with our exercising, with our special diets. We're doing all we can to stick around here. I came to that conclusion some time ago. What's to worry about? What's to worry about? Will the people who love you miss you? Sure they will. But if it's your time to go, that's in God's hands. And hopefully I have been faithful in the life he's given me, the abilities he's given me. And look forward to, as this devotion is titled, Impending Resurrection. It will come. The trumpet will sound. The graves will be opened. And the dead in Christ will rise. Blessings to you today.